Welcome to Podcasting with Derek Webb. This is Jeff Morris of DerekWebb.net. The idea behind this series of podcast interviews was just to sit down with Derek, talk to him about politics and art, the economics of the music business, things that are on our hearts and minds as fans of music here in Derek's house, and now we decided to let you listen in to our conversation. All right, so you are Derek Webb, and you were part of this band that you either know right when you instantly hear the name, or you're like, who in the world are these people? Caveman's Call. So, and this is a story that even I don't fully know. How did you actually get involved with the band? Because, I mean, for longtime fans of Caveman's, I mean, I'm one certainly, and I mean, I've had the demo tape, and I know you played guitar on the demo tape, but you weren't vocals on the demo tape. It was actually the only time Caveman's has ever had two female vocalists.
Yeah.
So how did you get started and involved in all this?
Well, I was just out of high school and went to high school with Aaron Tate. He was 2 years older than me, I think. And it was interesting. So Aaron went off to, this was all in Houston, and Aaron went off to TCU, Texas Christian University. And Cliff Young was also at TCU. And that's kind of where the idea, that's where the thing kind of was birthed when, the way Cliff has told me the story, they were all in the same hall, I guess. And Aaron was in there playing some songs. Cliff wandered down and introduced himself and, said, kind of heard him play some songs, thought they were really great songs, which they were. I'm sure he was playing songs like All I Know and Not Enough and, the early songs that were so good.
Yeah.
All the songs, but especially those early songs. There's something really special about that early material. And so Cliff heard Aaron playing those songs and I think he already had the idea of, Cliff is an opportunist. And, he knows when to strike at what. He just knows. He's just got this sense of it. And like when to make a connection, when there's a special opportunity right in front of him, he knows to take advantage of it. Yeah. Unlike a lot of people I know, he's just really great at that. So he said, these are great songs. Do you play? Do you want to, and he said, no, I'm just right. I don't even really like to play that much. And because Aaron had these amazing, like these obvious gifts to write these tremendous songs. Absolutely. But he didn't really feel he had gifts to play them as much. He just liked to write them. And Cliff said, well, I've got some friends back in Houston, and we'd love to play these songs if you'd let us play the songs. Is that cool? Would you let us play your songs? And Aaron said, yeah, But he wanted to start up a band, and because he was into a lot of cool music. And I think that he, at that point, had already started to see or feel some of the frustration with, okay, I'm a college-age, Christian, and there's not really any music that's speaking to me or what I'm feeling at all. Like there doesn't seem to be any music. It's all either geared towards really, really young kids, or it's this kind of adult contemporary thing that I'm not interested in. And so, and it would be nice to have some music made by people with my worldview, sorting out the world with the same way that I'm trying to. It would be interesting to hear. It'd be insightful. It'd be helpful. And he was kind of feeling that frustration, I think. So he saw an opportunity with Aaron's songs and went back and talked to Danielle and talked to a few other people. There were a few other folks involved at that point, and just said, he had a great opportunity because his dad is the pastor of a really big church down there, and so put some people together to play some of these songs and did it at church. Todd Bragg, who still plays drums for the band, had just moved in from Louisiana, was playing drums for the church, like for the Sunday morning service. And so, it was pure proximity at that point. Cliff just didn't know a lot of drummers, and Todd, it was so great that it was Todd, because it could have been anybody, but it happened to be this really cool guy who's a really great drummer, who's into really cool music. It could have been anybody. So it's so great that it ended up being somebody with that kind of taste. And so he went to Todd and said, hey, do you want to play drums? I'm going to do this thing. And so I guess the way I got involved was that it was all still really elementary at that point. It was all, I don't think he had a lot of ambition as far as like, we're going to make some big career of this. It was just, let's get, we've got great songs, we've got some musicians, let's play some music. He had a lot of opportunity with his dad in the church, and he had a place to play. And so he called Aaron and said, hey, do you want to come and play guitar? And Aaron's like, I really don't. I think Aaron did play one show with him, though. I think they did play some of Aaron's songs at Second Baptist, and Aaron played. And it was Cliff and Aaron and Danielle and a handful of other folks. I wasn't in the picture then, but I've seen some footage from it. There is a tape somewhere.
Ooh.
There is a tape
That's
somewhere.
That's like the Zapruder film right
yes,
there.
Yes, it is. We're going to go back and find out what really happened. It doesn't make any sense.
It was Garrett on the grassy knoll.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, man, the magic songwriter theory. He was here and he was there and then he went over there. So anyway, there's footage, so I understand. And
wow.
I've seen it with my own beady eyes. And so they did play, and I think Carrie was involved at that point. And so Carrie Harris and the then Carrie Harris. And so then Cliff said to Aaron, well, do you want to do this thing permanently? And Aaron said, I really don't. I mean, I don't have any interest in playing, but I really like to write. And so he said, well, do you know any guitar players? And Aaron and I had been friends, and Aaron knew I was into like the Indigo Girls and a lot of folkier kind of stuff. And I guess I just came to mind, and Aaron called me and he said, hey, I've got this friend who I met at college who's playing some of my songs in this little band, and he needs a guitar player, and I thought of you. It's kind of cool stuff. It's Indigo Girls, it's folky, it's percussion and acoustic guitars. And at the time, I'd been in bands my whole life, and I was way out of any band at that point. I was trying to go to college in Houston and failing kind of miserably at that. Even just at the physical, trying to get to college, I was failing pretty miserably at. So I told him I would love to meet Cliff, and so he introduced us. Cliff and I met up at Second Baptist, and we didn't. And basically, it was good. We had a goal. We were supposed to practice and play the show at Rice University. It was kind of the band's They say it's the band's first gig, but they'd played again, like with Aaron that one time. They'd played at church a couple times, but it was the first kind of big gig that somebody had given them at a college. And so Cliff and I got together. I got together with him to learn the songs, and we sat around at Second Baptist Church and played Indigo Girls songs for like 2 hours. And because we'd never met anyone else who knew as many Indigo Girls songs as the other of us did, and so we're like, oh, this one, and we started playing it, and we had a blast. We just hit it off. He's really different than me, and in ways that I was really drawn to, and we had a blast. We had a really good time. We had great conversation. He's just incredible fun guy to be around.
Oh,
he's just you can't really even explain it. I mean, he's just a remarkable guy.
Cliff is just Cliff. That's just
he is, and what's funny is he always has been. It's got nothing to do with the success of the band. It's got nothing to do. He's always been like this totally extraordinary, just charming guy who you just want to be around. You just want to be around him all the time.
Yep.
And so anyway, so we had to get together again the next day and learn the songs, and they were great songs. And then I think the next day Danielle and Carrie were there as well, and they were doing all the harmonies and stuff. It was like this great cool 3-part harmony over like really folky. Mm-hmm. I was like, man, this is great, and they sang great, and like they were, I was thrilled to have met some cool musicians, something that really looked promising. And at the time had some plans to move to Colorado and live with this guy, with this songwriter up there who I'd met at a camp, and he was incredible. I was going to move up there with him and write songs and play the Colorado coffee house circuit up there in it was like sort of Boulder, and I didn't have any other plans, and those were my plans at the time, and Cliff knew it. We learned the songs, we played the thing at Rice. Nobody came except for like some parents of ours and a few friends. It was pretty humiliating. And then Cliff said, we really want to make we want to record a few things and get like a tape together, get a demo thing together. And Second Baptist is the most resourceful place on the planet. They have a recording studio, they have all that stuff. And Bob Boyd, who's a brilliant mastering engineer, was working up there and said, I'll help you guys out. And so we had a budding virtuoso on our hands, and he and he made like the early recording stuff sound amazing. And so we got in there so Cliff asked me if I'd come and do that. And I was like, yeah, of course, I'd love to. And that was kind of a big thing. I was like, wow, these guys are going to record something, and that's as far as any, crappy little cover band I've ever been in. That's as far as we ever got, was recording something. And this has only been a month, and we're already going to record something. And it's pretty exciting. The songs were great. And this was one of the first times in my life that I was actually really digging the music that I was playing. Like, I'd been in bands my whole life, and when I really stopped and thought about it, I wouldn't listen to the music that I was playing in these bands. It was fun for me as like an electric guitar player, playing this rock stuff, but it was totally, I don't know, just none of it was anything I would have really listened to probably. And so this was really great because I was like, man, I really dig this music. Like, I love this stuff. I think it's really good music. And so he asked me to come play on the demo, which I did. And through that process, he kind of came to me and he said, listen, I know you've got these plans to move, whatever, but if you would stay, we would really like for you to be in the band, like be part of this, thing. And I was like, yeah, I don't know. I've kind of got these plans. I've been thinking that direction for so long. And I thought through it. My brother, who is amazing at has always been amazing at helping me process. I can just kind of vomit a lot of, feelings and information out to him, and he kind of reorganizes it and kind of puts it back in front of me and says, here's your decision. You've made it. You just don't realize this is really what you want to do. So he talked with me about it, and I went back to Cliff and said, yeah, man, I'll stay, and I met Todd that day at the Rice University concert. After the concert, we shook hands. Hey, how's it going? I'm Derek. I'm Todd. We met like after we played together. We didn't even rehearse together. I didn't even meet him till after the show. And he'd asked Todd to stay. He'd asked some people to kind of be in it. And then we started to play. We started to play at Second Baptist, and we started to play at some friends who were starting college, same age we were, who were Texas colleges all over the state. Yeah. We started to play a little bit, and then after a while, Carrie decided that she just really didn't want to do it. I mean, it was just going to be a lot more work than I think she was about to get married and some other things, and those guys didn't even know that I sang. I was just a guitar player, and so I started to sing. I had a similar range as Carrie did. That's why on the demo tape, Carrie sings the first verse, Not Enough, and then on our first. On My Calm Your Storm, I sang it. We had a similar range, and that was convenient.
Yeah.
Because she could sing really low for a girl, and I could sing kind of high for a guy. So we kind of met in the middle, and so I started singing all the parts that Carrie sang before. Some not much lead, mostly just harmony stuff. And it wasn't until like a solid year later that I started to write anything. So I mean, it was really slow, But that's how it all happened, and it's like we didn't think that it would really go anywhere. I don't think. I think we were just really thrilled to be playing music with other people who we loved hanging out with, and it was just really fun. And
I had somebody who was paying you for it.
And we were actually, I mean, it was kind of developing it, because we had so many friends. I mean, Cliff was just so resourceful. The church was such a huge resource,
sure.
And we had so many friends who were all over Texas in college, and that's a huge resource because we could drive in any direction within a couple hours, and we'd be at a school somewhere, or we'd be somewhere, and friends would bring their friends, and then we'd sell a bunch of these or give away a bunch of these tapes. And
right.
Yeah, it was crazy. I mean, we didn't know what we were doing, but it was really fun.
The accidental success of Caveman's.
Yeah. It was a blast.
With some people, Caveman's is still the My Calm Your Storm.
Right.
Self-titled Caveman's.
Mm-hmm.
And, nothing past 1996 matters to some of these people.
I know.
But, Caveman's is still grown and evolved and all that. But, of course, I mean, talking about somebody that's growing and evolving, I mean, since you've gone solo, you put out your first record that was very, very country influenced, very folk country, and then you put out this art record, which I think kind of threw some people. Now, I loved it, but then that's because you and I like some of the same kinds of music.
Right.
So it's good, and some of the Wilco and some of the influences that you see there obviously are there. And so, I mean, hey, it was good. So, but, talk about, what you like as an artist. I mean, because with Caveman's, it was, the amalgamation of all of your musical influences is what made that band what it was.
It was a big democracy, yeah.
And it still does make it what it is today in the way they're doing the world influence stuff and all that, and the people that have involved with it now. But now you And then Case and all these guys that you're working with now are the people that are developing that. How is your sound developing, and where do you sort of see that you're going right now?
Well, I mean, I'm really trying with the writing, with the recording, with all of it. I'm really trying to shoot from the hip. I mean, I'm trying to continue to do that. I mean, I feel like with the first record, I mean, I didn't. There wasn't the big ambition, like I'm going to go and do the church record. I'm going to go do. I mean, all of it was very spontaneous. Yeah. All of it was. And the house show record was very spontaneous. It was just like, well, it's time to put another record out, but I don't have any songs written because we've been out all year touring, and so let's document what we are doing, and so let's record this. It was an afterthought. It was a mistake. But it ended up being, it's always the mistakes that I'm the most proud of, like the things that we didn't plan to do end up being the things that I'm like the most proud of. And so we recorded that thing, but that wasn't, we didn't think too much ahead about that. And then the house show record. And then when it came to doing the last record, I See Things Upside Down, I didn't know what that was going to look like either. I didn't know, if it was going to be like the first record. I really didn't know. I mean, the songs dictate a little bit of that. But I mean, the way that we recorded the last record was, I mean, I just did guitar vocals of all the songs, and that's what they were, and they could have gone any direction. And then I basically just put musicians together that I really trusted and just set them loose, just told them, when you guys are happy, then I'm happy, and I want you to do whatever you want to do. And I'm done. I mean, I've done the final guitar vocals are done. So I'm going to sit in here in the control room and you guys play, and they played live to that stuff. And I mean, I was thrilled. I mean, and so I was just like trying to steer it, but not much. I mean, they would come in and say, "What do you think?" And I'd say, "What do you think?" "Well, I don't know. What do you think?" "Well, what do you think?" And because I really wanted them to be a big part of it. I wanted them to really craft it, and take some ownership in it. Because I trust those guys. I mean, all the guys who played on the record, but I think, and Kaysen and I've talked about this, and I think Kaysen definitely, Kaysen Cooley, for those who don't know, who was in the Normals for many years, who's an amazing keyboard player, amazing thinker, amazing philosopher, theologian.
He's an amazing guy.
He's an amazing guy, and one of my favorite people on the planet currently. Out of 6.5 billion, he's one of my favorites. And anyway, he and I have talked about this, and he really saw what we did on I See Things Upside Down as we are going to basically dismantle anyone's idea of what my sound is.
And you did. Coming
out of Caedmon's, because I think the first She Mustn't Shall Go Free was a good transition record for me because there was that hint of that kind of country rock or whatever thing that I would bring to some of the Caedmon stuff. Yeah. You think of Love's Different or Faith My Eyes, or I mean, on any one of the records, there is some of that influence, because that's what I've always been into, kind of more folky stuff, which definitely walks the line of country sometimes. Right. And that's definitely what I was into. I've always been into, but I was especially into that year. And so I think it was the right record for me to do coming right out of Caedmon's. But then I think, like Kaysen has said, it was important that we did something that was kind of so left of center that we're going to basically dismantle everyone's idea. We're going to go back to square one completely stylistically, so no one can really expect anything, where all the expectations kind of go out the window because they don't really know what we're going to do. And I think he has rightfully said that now it really gives us an opportunity to literally do whatever we want. And it doesn't have to be really experimental, and it doesn't have to be really folky, and it doesn't have to be anything, because now we have kind of a clean slate to work with. And I'm going to be interested too to see what we end up doing. I mean, but I think all of us have our heads clear right now as far as we're just going to get in and we're going to take a hard look at the songs, and we're going to see what do they want and what naturally happens when we play them. Because we've played a few of them with the full band over the last year, and something does naturally happen. A sound kind of evolves when we play the new songs. When I show the songs to the guys, what they all instinctively do creates a certain sound. And so Kaysen and Mark Polak playing bass and Will Sales playing drums. Those guys just have a certain thing that they generate. and we're going to get in here and we're going to see what it sounds like. And I was happy with the last record, but I think this one's going to be really different.
Cool, I'm looking forward to hearing it.
I am too, yeah. We'll see.
You've always said that every time, though. You're looking forward to
hearing my own record?
As much as your fans do, yeah.
Yeah, I just don't know what's going to happen. I mean, we really don't. We don't do a lot of rehearsals. We're just going to come in and see what happens. And with guys like Case and Will and Mark and these kind of people, I mean, anything could happen, and it can be great.
Welcome to Podcasting with Derek Webb. I'm Jeff Morris.
And I'm Brian Elaine from DerekWebb.net.
These recordings are a series of live conversations and live concert recordings that allow you to delve deep into the music of Derek Webb.
This podcast is an excerpt from Derek's upcoming live DVD, How to Kill and Be Killed, in stores October 11th.
The ideal live show for me is probably a combination of things, because I really enjoy the intimacy of the house shows and being in front of 20, 30, 40 people a night, and really having the freedom to change things as I went, and to talk and to do whatever I needed to do. I really enjoyed that, but I forgot how much I really enjoyed the camaraderie of having a band and having guys with me and all the noise we can make with that many people on stage. And so by the time we land, I don't really know what it'll look like. I think guys like you two have a great model provided for the rest of us, how to make a really great and kind of grand live experience, but also very intimate. In the way that they do it, it's puzzling to watch and to figure out how exactly they're pulling that off. But I think there is a way to have that many people on stage and create that much sound, and yet still be able to kind of draw people in. Maybe some of that has to do with the songs. Maybe playing songs that people really connect with, being intentional about connecting with people, and providing a lot of entertainment and a lot of sights and sounds without all the pretense and mystique of the typical kind of rock star big show thing that people do that really keep people at a distance. We thought it was important to document the tour for this new record because we did it on the first record, and I was really glad that we had done that with the house show CD. I was really glad that we took the time to document that, because that was a tour that not a lot of people got to see, and so I was glad that we were able to put it in a format where more people could see it than just the folks who were able to make it out. And I'm so proud to have these guys. I mean, this is like an all-star band on this tour, and every one of these guys is worth having their own DVD made about them, because they're all tremendous. They all have such great history, playing in the bands they've been in, things they've done. And so and maybe selfishly, I love to watch these guys play. I love playing shows with them. I'll probably want to watch this thing over and over again just to see these guys play, because they're tremendous. We started off with the new record, just the playlist for the new record, because it's so rare that you would have the guys who originally interpreted the songs in the studio to get to come out and reinterpret them on the road with you is really rare. Normally you have certain guys in the studio with you that play because they're great, and then you go out, because you can't afford those guys every night, so you go out and get other guys and kind of make it work on the road. But to have these guys out, I wanted to play every song on the record if we could, the new record, because these guys had created the parts that they'd be playing live. They created them in the studio. They have as much ownership in these new songs as I did. And then I went straight for the old Caedmon songs, and I wanted to incorporate a lot of old songs if I could. Some of the songs that even in Caedmon's we hadn't played. So it was tremendous to hear these guys do it. And so the more of those old songs I threw out, the better they sounded. So we tried to really do all the new ones, as many old ones as we could. And then I remember that I have other solo records, and so we started to put a few of those in. So it was really hard. I mean, if we had done everything we wanted to do, it would have been a 3-hour show, but we just couldn't do that. The things that inspire me to write are the things that excite me or inspire me in my life. There's just no difference for me. It's not exactly journaling for me, but it's definitely really expressive as far as if I, for instance, with the first record, I started to learn about the church, started to make sense of my own kind of fringe relationship with the church or with community at all, with people. I'm pretty standoffish, and I've not ever had a lot of friends, let alone been a part of a real community where people really know me. And I really like to stay away from people, and I started to learn about why I needed people, why I needed to be involved with people, why I needed people around me, the wisdom of people older than me, the vitality of people younger than me, in order to kind of round me out. And so I started to write about that, because that's what I was thinking about, that's what I was talking to my friends about, trying to figure out for myself. And through that process, wrote all those songs. That's just how it happened. It wasn't really like an agenda that I had, it was just what was happening in my life. With the second record, with the new record here, it was very much the same, but maybe even more honest, because I didn't have the time to even think through what I was writing about. I had been touring so much for the first record, I didn't have a lot of time to really sit down and write songs intentionally, so I was having to I used every song I wrote last year because I didn't have time to really sit down and say, okay, here's my topic, and I'm going to write all these songs, and it's this big idea. It was just, I've got to write about everything for the next 6 months, and whatever comes out is what the record's going to be. So it didn't have as much of a theme, a real concrete concept to it. It was just kind of a batch of snapshots from whatever had been happening in my life. And right now I'm really studying a lot, learning a lot about social injustice and politics and things like that. And there might be a real political overtone to the next record with some of the new songs that are being written. I don't know. That's just what I'm interested in. It's what's getting me excited in my personal life. And so that's already what I'm starting to write about. And so it's really organic. I have no idea. I never know when a song's about to come. But when I start to get kind of jazzed about something, I generally want to keep pen and paper handy. The thing I love about artists like Elliott Smith, or like Bob Dylan, for instance, another guy I can't leave home without, or even U2, the people who Indigo Girls, people who I continue to come back to, no matter what new record I buy next week, I'll continue coming back to Wilco, some of these kind of artists. The thing about them is the fact that they're so honest. With no care for their reputations, they're just so unbelievably honest. And there's something about listening to an Elliott Smith record, for me, a guy who was an addict, a guy who was a recluse. He had a lot of issues socially and really terribly insecure. And I really appreciate that when I listen to the records that led up to his death, that you see that all over those records. You hear all about what he's struggling with and the things that are just killing him. You hear all about it. It's all right there. I mean, it was, while it was tragic, it was no surprise to people who follow his music. And the difference between that and people in my industry, or in what's categorized as the Christian music that's out there, is that right before the big tragedies in the marriages of the people in my industry and in the personal lives of the people in my industry, it's a shock, because we're not hearing about it, because we're not honest about it, because we're so fearful that people will know who we really are, because more is wrapped up in trying to look like Jesus than look like people who need Jesus, which I think is a tragedy. I'm not like Jesus. I'm not at all, actually. I'm a wreck of a person, and I need it. Without him, I'd be lost. And I would rather people see my potential losses than see my made-up kind of fictional righteousness that doesn't get me anywhere. Because if that's all I show to them, then they're going to be shocked when they find out that I really am a radical person. But that's who I really am. And I'd rather people just know that now. I'd rather there be no pretense about whether or not I'm a good person, whether or not I'm someone you should really listen to. I'm not at all. But I know a guy. I think one of the reasons that it's important for artists in the church to be more concerned with making good art than making explicit art is because, for one, art is the primary way by which people engage each other's worldviews. And just as Paul in Acts 17 was in the marketplaces and in the towns and where the people were discussing worldviews, where they were discussing the truths or the things of the day, they were trying to figure out where the truth was, and that's where Paul went to have discussions about what he believed was true about the world. And I'm afraid that as artists in the church, if we're not making good art, we're not going to get invited into those worldview discussions, because where those are happening are in the Billboard Top 200. Those discussions are happening on the bar circuit in our towns and in our communities. It's happening on MTV. There are a lot of artists with a lot of worldviews who are making great art and therefore have a platform to discuss their worldview. As Christians, the reason that people aren't listening to what we have to say about the world is not because we're martyrs and they don't want to hear us because our faith and because of Jesus we're being persecuted. It's because our art is terrible. It's because we've got to put more importance on making good art. Because you look at a time like the Renaissance when the church was making great art, when the church was sanctioning and funding great art. And the church was at the forefront of it. We were at the cusp of creativity, of innovation, and the art had a lot more influence in that culture. The church had a lot more influence in that culture because of its art. Nowadays, the church is about 5 years behind pop culture, and it's no wonder the church is seen as kind of slightly irrelevant and one-dimensional. I really don't think it's overstating to say that is because our art is substandard. I think if the church was behind and making better art, I think we would find a place where we could discuss our worldview and culture. I really do. I don't think it's going to take better programs or better methods or multi-million-dollar buildings to draw people in to see what it is that we've got. I think it's going to take, first and foremost, our artists going out and making really respected and good art, excellent art, doing it with excellence. Just like I would want a Christian doctor doing his work with excellence. And it doesn't take a Christian doctor or a Christian plumber preaching to people in order to justify the work they're doing. You don't have to wrap a scripture verse around new piping to justify being a Christian and being a plumber. You don't have to put a scripture verse on a little tongue press to justify being a Christian doctor. What you do is you use the gifts God's given you as a caregiver, as a builder. You do that with excellence, and you allow that to speak to the worldview that you have. Not all artists have to engage in full-time ministry. Some simply need to make great art. And I think it's a double standard for if you play music, you immediately, the words of ministry come into it. I love your ministry. What do you know about my ministry? I, like all Christians, have a desire that disciples would be made and that people might come to faith, and that's something I concern myself in my community, in my personal life, but I'm a singer-songwriter. I'm just trying to make great art. I don't really see this as ministry. I see this as the work that I had to do, the gifts God's given me to do it. And as an individual, I do care about making disciples just as you do in your work, but this isn't full-time ministry for me. This is my work. There's nothing wrong with that. We need to have we need to have eyes to see the way that God might work in the world, and it might not be by way of all the categories that we put on Him.
Thanks for listening to Podcasting with Derek Webb. Once again, I'm Jeff Morris.
And I'm Brian Elaine from DerekWebb.net. Be sure to check us out on the web at DerekWebb.com and DerekWebb.net.
welcome to Podcasting with Derek Webb. I'm Jeff Morris.
And I'm Brian Elaine from DerekWebb.net.
These recordings are a series of live conversations and live concert recordings that allow you to delve deep into the music of Derek Webb.
This podcast is an excerpt from Derek's upcoming live DVD, How to Kill and Be Killed, in stores October 11th.
I was raised in the church. I was raised going to church. But didn't, I think it was more, like for a lot of people, it was more cultural. It was just something that we did. My parents raised us in the church. So I grew up with knowing the language of it, which I think is maybe a little unfortunate. Because people get so concerned with and so wrapped up in kind of the words, knowing all the right words, using all the right words, that we don't really understand what we're talking about. I think Christians have a really hard time with a really kind of exclusive language that we speak, many words that we don't even know ourselves what they mean, and the language, the code only works when we're talking to other Christians who also know the words. Even in the academic church circles, so much importance is put on learning all the right words, and using all the right words, and if you don't, we're kind of concerned whether or not, we should maybe pray for you because you're not using all the words we're familiar with. And, that's the thing I love about people in the church like Don Miller and folks like that who don't use the words we're familiar with, and so it makes us a little uncomfortable because they use plain language in a lot of respects to say things that maybe we agree with, but in a way that we're not used to hearing. But that's kind of our job, not only as artists, but as people in the church, to say things in a language that people can understand, to speak in plain language, not to, there are so many words that are so confusing. I mean, the words like justification, sanctification, atonement, gospel, witness, walk. Many of us don't even know what these words mean, but we use them. I feel like it just puts up more of a language barrier between us and the people who we're in this culture to love. We barely know what these words mean. How can we expect? Our Christianity can't be about winning people to our particular set of words. It can't be about winning people to our particular way of thinking. It can't be about winning people to listening to our particular type of categorized music or buying into our particular categorized type of politics. That's not what Christianity is. It's about recklessly, radically loving people. Just loving people. It's about feeding people. It's about putting clothes on people. It's about finding jobs for people. It's about putting houses around people who are homeless. I mean, and in that way, engaging with people in the way that Jesus might have engaged with them. As Christians are supposed to be little Christ, ambassadors of Jesus. Jesus did not have a particular party line that he walked when it comes to politics. He did not have a particular set of morals that he was hell-bent against you breaking down. If anything, his most harsh language was reserved for arrogant church leadership who was trying to put the weight of the law on people, and he was trying to set people free. Not to say that we don't need the law. Our faith isn't in the fact that we can live right, that we can vote right, that we can do right. It's that one has done these things right on our behalf, and that liberates us to love people, to engage with culture, to engage with art, to engage with politics, all because we have a framework in Scripture that liberates us to do so, that Jesus is Lord of all creation, and that liberates us to engage with all creation. It puts nothing out of the bounds of our creativity and out of our professional engagement. If you're a business person, you don't have to go and work at a church. If you're an artist, you don't have to go be in a praise band. You need to go and engage with culture, engage with creation, because it's our job to go into creation, into culture, and redeem it for God's glory. And I think that takes more than just mocking secular marketing and secular music, taking out all the things that makes it dangerous for us and risky, making it sugar-free and guiltless and putting Jesus or morality or what's the difference as far as we're concerned into it for people. That's not our job. It's to go in and say, all of art has intrinsic value because we are artists made in the image of a God who is creative. The whole first chapter of Genesis is devoted to our witnessing our creative God working in the world. It's the first thing we learn about it. In the beginning, God created. And we are made in His image, whether or not we're Christians or whatever faith we ascribe to. I mean, we're all created in God's image, and therefore creative people. Even if it's in the way that I can creatively lie to you, I'm a creative person. Even in the way that I pervert the image that I've been made in, it's still there. There still is something even broken that I still bear as a one created in the image of God. And we need to learn how to stop putting faith in categories and faith in kind of subcultures and start putting faith in Jesus, putting faith in living by the Spirit. Living by the Spirit is so much harder than living by the law. But what we want is a new law. That really is what we want as a Christian subculture. We want, here are the things we can do, here are the things that we cannot do. If you're a Christian, here are the things that you must do. Here are the things that you should not do, or else you're not really identified with typical Christianity in America. What we don't need is categories, putting faith in categories. We need a Savior. We need the Holy Spirit to guide us into truth, which might liberate us to engage with politics, and to see things like abuse of even our enemy prisoners as much of an ethic of life issue as abortion is, because it is. Either we respect life of all kinds, even non-American life, all life has to be important to us as Christians if we really are going to follow what Jesus said. And that might move in and out of political parties, that might move in and out of party lines, that might move in and out of different types of categorized art and different types of categorized business. But we've got to be people who are willing to stand in the middle, who will not align ourselves completely with any one political party, with any one type of art or business, but people who are engaged in all of creation, in as far as Jesus is Lord, and He is Lord of all creation. He is redeeming all things to Himself, and we have got to play a part in that. And if all we're doing as artists, as business people, is engaging with, 0.01% of all of creation, the most spiritually categorized of all creation, if that's all we're engaging in, then we're not really playing our role in kingdom building in this culture. And that's something we need to take seriously as artists, as business people, as Christians. The church is a hard thing to define, but real simply, I would say that it is the collection of, the church is the collection of all of God's people from all time, history, tribe, tongue, people group, gathered together. The church is the body of Jesus under His headship, and that doesn't have any respect for nationality, has no respect for space-time, it has no respect for language. It started in the Garden of Eden, and we gather together this week as well. And it's that kind of mysterious, transcendent collection of God's people. That's what the church is. But the church is also a local community here in this town. A body of 25 people gathering on a Sunday morning is also the church. But the church is always a living, breathing, organic group of people. It's not a building. It's not a concept. It was instituted by Jesus, but it's a group of people. That's what the church is. It's a diverse body of people, all with one common goal, but with many different talents, many different gifts, called to many different purposes and places, situations, and circumstances. But a diverse body with under one head. There are songs that I feel like I just have to play every night, and I think one of those songs is a song like Wedding Dress, since it's an important song for me. Since I wrote it, I do feel not a burden, but I feel a responsibility to play a song like that. And the reason is because it is so kind of recklessly confessional. because it really does. Because it requires of me that I don't lie to people about who I am, that I do confess to people that I really do know that I'm a needy and a wrecked person. And if I don't sing songs like that, then I run the risk of the arrogance that is all over my life and all over my heart. And it's good for me to have to confess that I am the harlot. I am the wife who cheats on her husband that Scripture talks about with the most vile and offensive language that it uses. And that language is in Scripture for a reason. And I need to admit to being that whore. I need to admit to that. It's good for me to have to say that because of the fact that it does offend me to sing that song. And I need to be offended at those words. And so I need to admit that I do trade Christ's body and blood for money, for security that I can make for myself. That I do put more faith in the fence up around my house and the locks on my doors than I put in Jesus' hand of safety on my life. I do put more faith in the insulation that my money can buy me moving out to the suburbs than having faith that Jesus keeps me safe even if I live in the middle of the inner city. I need to confess all that. And if I stop confessing that, then I might stop believing that. And so that's why that's why I sing songs like Wedding Dress, like I Repent, almost every single night. Because I need to continue to confess. I need to continue to repent of putting my faith and my security in living away from minorities, living away from the inner city, living away from perceived danger in the world, instead of going and engaging with all that, and being in the middle of what God might be doing in the poor areas of our cities, which is right where Jesus would live, incidentally. As much as he talked about the poor in Scripture, more than anything else, he talked about the poor, caring for the poor. As you've done to the least of these, you've done it to me. There are some theologians that would say that you can't even get into heaven without a reference letter from the poor. And I think if you say that Jesus is that poor, I think that would be true. If our faith is not such that it would cause us to, at peril to our own lives and reputations, that we would go and love and clothe and feed and house poor people who are needy, people who Jesus identified with, then we're nothing more than a clanging gong or a ringing cymbal. I mean, our lives and our faith really doesn't mean anything, and that's really what James spoke of when he talked about faith without works being dead. He wasn't saying that our works somehow perpetuate God's love for us, that somehow we add our works to the works of Jesus in order to be justified. That's not what he was saying. He was saying if your faith isn't such that it just compels you into where the need is, into where the weak and the poverty is, the weakness and the poverty is, if your faith doesn't take you to those places, then is your faith, is that real saving faith? Because real faith in Jesus is going to take you to those places. Now, going to those places doesn't make you saved, but that type of faith does. And that's why I sing those songs, because it reminds me that I am a person with that kind of need, that I'm a person with that kind of fear, that I'm a person with those kind of idols. And if I don't hear words like that offend me, then I'm bound to leave my faith in those things, and there's no salvation in those things.
Thanks for listening to Podcasting with Derek Webb. Once again, I'm Jeff Morris.
And I'm Brian Elaine from DerekWebb.net. Be sure to check us out on the web at DerekWebb.com and DerekWebb.net.
Hey, this is Derek Webb, and thank you for subscribing to the Derek Webb podcast. You might notice that this podcast sounds a little different than the ones before. I think we've had 3 podcasts go up in the last, year or something outrageous like that, and I really I'm excited about the technology. I'm excited about the podcasting idea, and it seems like a great way to connect with people. But I'm afraid we had made it into such an arduous kind of process to put the podcast together that it made it difficult to do them very often. And because obviously we don't have a crack team of audio engineers and staff writers who can sit around all day and help us put these things together. We're, like usual, on a shoestring budget. So I thought that maybe we would embrace that shoestring budget and make it, kind of cheap in a charming way. That's maybe my hope. So I decided, rather than trying to put a bunch of music together and music bumpers and introductions and things like that, that I would just buy this little voice recorder and to where I could carry around my podcast studio with me all the time. And because while I don't have a lot of extra time, I do have time while I'm waiting in airports for an hour or two sometimes between shows, or when I'm driving in a rent car trying to find my way to a city somewhere. I do have time, and waiting around in hotels, in hotel lobbies. And so I thought, if I can carry this thing around with me, then my goal is to get up at least one podcast a month, if not maybe even two a month. So they might not be very long some months, and they might, it might be different month to month, but or even week to week. But I'm committed to getting these things up more often, because I think this is a great way for us to be able to communicate. Now, here's what I mean by that. The way we're going to structure the new podcast, this is the new and improved podcast, by the way. The way we're going to structure this is, we want you, the podcast listener and subscriber, to control the content of the podcast. And so I'm basically going to be at your disposal. And so how we're going to do it is, you can email us questions. You can email them to podcast@DerekWebb.com. And we'll get those, and we're going to go through those questions, and we're going to basically devote each podcast to one question, and go through and try to answer questions, whatever you guys want to know about, or things that you want clarification on, or maybe even follow-up questions from other podcasts that we'll be doing. That's how we're going to do it. So, and what made me think of this was how many great questions we got a few months ago for the online chat that Don Miller and I did. He's a good friend, and we did a chat online, which I believe is actually going up as a podcast in the next week or so. So you'll be able to subscribe to that and download it and listen to it if you didn't get a chance to. We had a really good time. There was some good discussion. And so we have about 600 questions actually that came in for that podcast, for the online chat rather, that Don and I did. And I just thought, man, there's some really good questions in here, and I want to answer some of them. If people have questions, I would love to be able to talk and communicate a little bit. And since we all can't sit face to face and have those kind of conversations, we can try to use this technology to have a discussion. So that's why, again, you can submit follow-up questions to other podcasts, and we can continue to clarify and have conversations. As I can, I'm going to try to have guest people sharing the voice recorder with me. Get some different friends of mine maybe to join us some weeks and months to help answer some of these questions. And if I'm out traveling and with somebody cool, then I'll grab the voice recorder and we'll maybe create a quick podcast. So that's how we're going to do it. And we have about 600 questions to choose from. So while I'm waiting on your emails, maybe we'll just start with some of these. And so here's the question for this podcast. It comes from Holly in Chattanooga, Tennessee. And incidentally, when you send in your questions, let us know where you're from, and because we'll want to kind of keep track of where everybody is writing in from. Email is hard about that, so let us know where you're from. Holly in Chattanooga posed this question to Don and I about the fact that we both list secular artists as influences on the art that we make. And her question is, don't our indulgence in secular art have a tendency to dam the waters of intimacy with God? how do you justify publicly acknowledging inspirational source material that is clearly outside of the realm of Christendom? Now, just so you know, I'm not going to be editing these podcasts at all for content. I'm not going to plan ahead. I'm not going to go and read questions ahead. I'm going to try to just shoot straight from the hip. So some of this might be rambling a little bit. Some of it might be my having to find my way around to my point at times. And I hope that that's going to be okay. It's going to be more conversational. And so hopefully, as a result, you'll get good, honest answers, because I will not be planning ahead. So having said that, let's talk about this. It's a good question. A lot of big words in there, but I'll do my best. And I think that that's probably a question a lot of people have. I most certainly have links to a lot of artists, musicians, people who influence me on my website that are not playing what's called Christian music. They play what's called secular music. And I think that that's a good place to start, is to say, just for starters, it's a difficult question for me to know exactly how to answer, because I don't exactly know what Christian and secular music is. I don't really know what those terms mean. They mean something different to everybody, in one sense or the other. I don't really believe in Christian and secular music. I believe that there are Christian and secular people, and that those people make art, music, and that art or music reflects the worldview that those people have. But that's not to say that that there is one kind of music over another that is inherently redeemed or true or beautiful inherently, simply because it's made by someone with a particular worldview. If art reflects the condition of the heart of the one who made it, I can tell you that I really struggle with this, because I have a very corrupt heart. While my soul is most certainly saved, as far as I can tell, while my faith is in Jesus, and He was good on my behalf, and that's what makes me right before God. My flesh does not reform, and I'm still a wreck of a person on the inside. This is something commonly referred to as the already and the not yet. I'm already justified, but I'm not yet glorified. I'm not yet made right. That's all coming one day when the kingdom comes. But in this day, I'm still a bit of a wreck of a person. So, again, if art is a reflection, if the content of art is a reflection of the heart of the person who made it, if there's anybody making secular art, let me guarantee you that it's me. The art that I make, the thoughts that I have, the way I express those thoughts are in no way inherently good or Christian. If anything, it's the opposite, and I struggle with that. But the only other type of distinction you can make is just a commercial distinction, a categorical distinction, which is to say that there are companies, corporations, who have come up with these distinctions, these categories, Christian, secular, in order to make it easier for them to sell art to people. And I'm a little too suspicious on the whole to just blindly follow the categories of a corporation, knowing that that's really doing nothing for me other than buying me right into their ideas of these categories and making myself more susceptible to buying into their false advertising. And so here's what I mean by that. Christian companies have created categories like this in order to instill in us a certain sense of either fear or a false sense of security. And what I mean by that is that they draw a line and say anything on this side of the line, on this what's called the Christian side of the line, is good and true and beautiful, and it's beneficial for you, good for you spiritually, safe. Anything on this side of the line, what's called the secular side of the line, is bad for you, it's not true, it's ugly, it's in no way beneficial for you, and you should run from this, and it's dangerous. So they either instill in you this false sense of fear that everything on this side of the line, the secular side, is bad, and that everything on this side of the line, the Christian side, is good. And that just isn't true. It's just not that simple. We can't we can't think so simply about an issue like this. The answer we're looking for is much more nuanced. It's down in the details a little bit more. Francis Schaeffer would say that the only truth is God's truth. That anything true, he didn't mean this in a pluralistic way. If anything is true, it comes from God. It finds its origin with God, even if the person who proclaims it does not understand that that's where it comes from. If it's absolutely true, it comes from God. Beauty is the same way. There's only derivative beauty. The only thing that's beautiful about something is the way that it reflects the original beauty that only God has. And any place, this is what Francis Schaeffer would go on to say, that any place you can find real truth, real beauty, any place you can find that, regardless of what the category is, that's a place you can engage with God. And I think that's a good place to start from. Rather than living in fear about one type of category of art, or living with a false sense of security that you can go into your local Christian bookstore and anything you pick up there is going to be true and beautiful. If anything, unfortunately, what we've learned is that the church's art is not synonymous with truth and beauty. I have heard a lot of Christian songs misrepresenting the character of God, telling me a half-truth about the experience of human life, of human drama. And I think as far as anyone who tries to tell you a half-truth but parades it around as the whole truth is not telling you any truth. There's no truth at all in that. And I think a lot of times Christian art tends to oversimplify the experiences that we have as believers. They oversimplify how difficult life can really be, and even the Christian life. And I really believe that is parading a half-truth as though it's the whole truth, and which makes it into a lie altogether. And so I think there's a lot of what's called Christian music that's lying to us about the conditions of our own hearts, the difficulty of our own lives, and it makes us feel like there's something wrong with us if we don't experience this kind of airbrushed joy that we find in some of what's called Christian music. And I just feel like that is something that at very least deserves our discernment. So there's yet another example of how we cannot just trust these categories. Just because a CD says file under Christian music does not make it good and right and true. It just makes it categorized. And those categories don't really mean anything. We have a lot of friends here in Nashville who are brilliant professional songwriters. They write songs for a living. They write country songs. They write all kinds of songs. Many of them who we know are not followers of Jesus, but they're great writers, and just like they can learn how to speak the language of country music and all the different idiosyncrasies of the way that those songs are written, and they can use that knowledge to write great country songs and even songs that are cut on country records and big hits for different artists, they have learned to and often do the same thing with Christian music. And a lot of the songs you hear on Christian radio, even some of them praise and worship type songs, are written by people who are not believers, but simply people who understand how to speak the Christian language and know how to write a really good pop song. Now, that should, again, make the conversation about the category of Christian music a little more difficult. We shouldn't be satisfied with these easy answers. So what we need to learn how to do is look for truth, look for beauty. In all of art, be fearless to engage with all kinds of art. And look for truth and beauty. Look for where we can engage with God in all kinds of art. And even with Christian art, absolutely. But not just with Christian art. God does not wait for us to stamp, again, file under Christian music. He doesn't wait for us to stamp that on a record for Him to say, okay, now I will speak through this. Now this is my voice. He does not work in these categories, even though we may believe that He does. So I just think it's a difficult... it's interesting that I have to say all this before even trying to answer a question about listing non-Christian influences, because when I listen to the music of Bob Dylan and some of his bold and stark truth-telling that he does in the way that he writes and what he writes, even more so in his music from the 60s and the 70s than his what's called Christian records he did in the 80s, there's some incredible beauty and truth-telling in these songs. And when you learn how to engage with that and chew on the meat and spit out the bones, but have no fear about the engaging with it, is when you start to get a sense for the liberty you have in engaging with art. Listening to Bob Dylan really restores my sanity in a lot of ways, more so than almost anything I can find that's called Christian music, that tries to tell me a half-truth about reality and tell me that that's the whole truth, and lies to me in that way. Wilco, the band Wilco, is the same way. They make some incredibly true statements in that the art they make is original, it's beautiful, it's progressive, it's provocative. And it really communicates to me about the beauty and the creativity of our God. I mean, the whole first chapter of our Bible in Genesis is devoted to just simply marveling at the incredible creativity of God. As He makes all things, speaks everything out of nothing, and proclaims it very good. And as I look around living here in Tennessee, I see a lot of incredible art in the hills and even just in the flowers in our own garden. There's no cheesy art that I see. And yet, how are we representing the character of that great Creator God when we make such unoriginal and derivative art as His redeemed image bearers? As a Christian, I should, of all people, be fearless about making great and original and bold and truth-telling art. If for no other reason, because it's my job as one who is building the kingdom with the gifts that I have to represent His creative character consistently. And making really bad but very commercial art is not the way I'm going to do that. And I think too many Christian artists are more concerned with selling a lot of records and getting really popular and paying their mortgages than they are with taking seriously the role that they might play in pushing back the effects of the fall, in communicating the creative character of our God by the way that they reflect His creative nature, by making great art, by simply making great art. I think that's something we need to take seriously. And so anyway, I think that this is, but this is good because this is the kind of conversation that we need to be having. Now that's not to say that if there is music, I mean, we need to have discernment about this. If there is music that you listened to, or when you listen to it, there's a stirring in you that it's maybe not good for you to listen to that music. And that could be just as much what's called Christian music as non-Christian music. It really could be. But if you ever get that feeling, and if you pray that the Holy Spirit would show you what it is that He wants for you to do. And are there times to say, no, I'm not going to listen to this music? And absolutely there are. And I want to encourage you, if you have moments where you feel like maybe this is not healthy for me, maybe I don't need to listen to this, maybe guarding certain things about my heart is more important in this instance than exercising my liberty to do it. Absolutely, I agree with that. And so again, I'm not trying to create some kind of a new law out of this liberty to say that you must engage with art in this way. I'm just saying that you can. There's not just one way to do it that follows these strict categories that are pretty much fictional. They were created by companies to sell us music. And so anyway, maybe that causes more questions than it really is an answer. But I can just tell you that in regards to the Beatles, Wilco, Bob Dylan, U2, the Indigo Girls, all the people who really influence me and inspire me, and the fact that some of them are not followers of Jesus, I can say that they are still men and women created in the image of God, in the image of a God who is a brilliant and amazing and astounding creator. And I believe that they do more to represent the character of that creator God to me. They do it better than many of the people who call themselves Christians and make art, who do not, in my opinion, represent it well at all, and in fact are misrepresenting God's character. Because again, God did not make any cheesy or unoriginal art, and so we should strive to stay away from making that kind of art as well as we try to represent Him to culture. So anyways, so that's where maybe our conversation will begin. And if you have questions about that stuff, then let's pick it up there. And you can email those questions to podcast@DerekWebb.com, or just questions out of the blue about anything. There's a lot of good questions in here about, why I left Caedmon's and, what crazy things inspire songs. And there's a lot of really good questions, and I want to hear all that stuff. I don't want to talk about the same stuff all the time. So let's hear some questions, and email those again, podcast@DerekWebb.com. And we'll get a hold of those, and then we'll see how often we can put up a podcast for you. And we really appreciate you listening and subscribing. Please check out the website also, DerekWebb.com, and get all the latest information about where we're going to be out on the road. And we'd love to see you out at some of the shows. And we'll try to keep you up to date with things that are on the horizon and what our plans are for the summer and next fall. We're going to stay out on the road quite a bit, so please keep an eye on those tour dates, and maybe we'll see you at one of these shows. So thank you so much again for listening and subscribing, and we'll talk to you next time.
Well, I hope everybody can hear me. This is Derek Webb, and Don Miller is on the line as well. And if our moderator is out there listening on the internet, this would be a good time for him to call in as well. But for the time being, when the cat is away, the mice will play, as they say. So we're going to, I guess, just ask each other some questions. And so let me introduce Don Miller. He's on the line as well.
Hello. It's good to be with you on the internet.
We don't exactly know what we're doing, and that's going to make things all the more fun, I would imagine.
There was
so, Don, you're in
Portland. There was a show in Portland, Oregon. You're in Nashville, right?
I'm in Nashville, Tennessee, yeah. And
similar cities, both on a river.
What's that?
Similar cities, both on a river, about the same size.
Yeah, that's true.
They lean left a little bit. A lot of people from different states live there.
Yeah, that's true. I moved here from Texas. And you actually moved to Portland from Texas.
I moved here from Texas. You moved there from Houston, is that right?
Yeah. I originally lived in Memphis, and then I moved to Houston when I was like 13, and then I moved to back here to Nashville chasing my wife.
Here's the story. I've been listening to your wife's CD a little bit lately, too. It's funny that I've been listening to the CDs that I've heard you guys
cool.
concert. But, yeah, it's great. Funny story, I went to a Bible study. I was visiting Houston maybe 10 years ago and went to a Bible study at First Baptist Church of Houston, and there were like 8,000 college students there.
Right.
Like and you guys were the worship band, and my friend who's a music nut, he's a DJ in town, he's a music nut, he said, you got to hear this band, they're really great. He said, what do you think? And do you think they'll make it, is what he said. And I said, I really don't think they're going to make it. They're too good. They're just not. They have too much talent to make it. That was Caedmon's call, and of course you guys bombed. Awful.
Yeah, exactly.
But that was my introduction.
Dude, that's hysterical. And so you were at that was the Metro Bible Study.
Metro Bible Study, that's right. And there was a guy there. Women, it wasn't Women of Faith. Some chick band. Four good-looking girls.
Oh, was it Point of Grace?
Point of Grace. They were really great. But the guy who was leading the Bible study, he didn't have a music stand. And so he had one of the girls from Point of Grace stand there holding his Bible.
Wow.
It reminded me of the time when David Letterman had the gymnast who had won the gold medal in the Olympics. Every time the show got boring, the gymnast would come out and do backflips, and then they would go back.
That's
totally used them. Really.
That's great. Wow. Well, that's humbling. I'm glad that we're still friends after that.
That's right.
After all that. Here's going to be the hard thing about this, Don, is that you and I are going to have to remember that there are, potentially a couple hundred people listening to our conversation right now. This feels like we're just on the phone talking.
Right. So no confessions and no profanity.
That's right.
Is that what you're saying? None of that.
Well, yeah. I mean, do we need to set any other ground rules? Probably not.
Probably not. But if they're listening on the internet, they're probably not the most upstanding people anyway. Really. there's kids in, let's be honest, kids in dorm rooms. I think somebody's just joined us.
Has someone joined us?
That's me. This is Mike.
Mike Parker.
Mike, welcome. You know, you're
Welcome.
only about 10 minutes late.
I am running behind. I apologize.
That's okay. Are you doing all right?
I'm doing well, and yourself?
Good. We're doing well. We've just been, kind of shooting the breeze here for the last couple minutes.
Cool.
So everyone welcome Mike Parker. I'm sure there's like internet applause happening. I don't know exactly how people do that. Probably with some sort
Circuit
of
City is going crazy.
Circuit City is going crazy.
Break room at Circuit City at Baybrook Mall is
I am quite sure that everyone is thrilled to death. So.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Well, that means I don't have to go through. That was going to be dangerous for a few minutes because I've got a list of some of these questions, and I was going to go through and pick some of my favorites, but I guess we're going to leave that to Mike at this point. So we'll turn it over to you.
So give me a second, just here, so I can get my computer in line.
Sure.
You go to Starbucks, Mike?
Do I go to Starbucks?
Are you at a Starbucks? Is that where you are?
No, I am not. I'm actually at home.
Okay.
But,
are you okay? Was everything all right? The reason that you were late?
Yeah, my mind was in 7 different directions. So.
How you feel, man?
That happens to me when I drink. Yeah, well, Derek, there was a show. This whole thing reminds me of a show that got extremely popular here in Portland. It was a radio show on public access radio. Yeah. And the guy, it was the morning drive time show, and literally he would wake up, he would drive to be a DJ wherever he was, and then he would call his girlfriend and wake her up, because I guess they lived together, and they would talk. They would talk for an hour, and that was the whole show.
Unbelievable.
It was just them talking about, like, the guests they had the night before or what they want to get at the grocery store. And it was like, it was the greatest show ever. I mean, you just listen.
Incredible.
It became like a soap opera.
Well, yeah. I mean, and did she know at first that they were being recorded, or?
Yeah, they both knew.
Okay. That's fascinating. Well, that's basically what we got going on here tonight.
It basically is.
It's a similar premise.
We're going to have a fun time tonight.
Yeah.
We'll
talk about some interesting stuff. So are we on the air? Are we ready to go?
Yeah, we're cooking.
We're on the air.
People are already talking, huh?
Oh, yeah.
But they've been, yeah, we're good.
Well, good. Well, let's start out with a couple of questions. One of the questions that I wanted to know about was you both are kind of on the forefront of what we call the Christian counterculture, if that's a good word. And one of the questions that we've been asked is, counterculture tends to lend itself to eventually becoming the culture. Okay? How do you maintain a level of being that exists outside of the Christian subculture, if you will, without actually being pulled into it or creating your own subculture? How do you stay relevant to the actual, real, honest-to-goodness culture? And let's start with Derek and get your take on that.
Sure. Well, that's a big question. I mean, honestly, one of the ways that I probably do that subconsciously is that I just don't know what's going on in Christian subculture. I just don't, or counterculture even. Like, I don't really know. To me, it's not like an intentional engaging with some kind of a countercultural idea or group of people or community. I'm just kind of trying to live my life. I'm trying to sort out what my gifts are and how I can use them to encourage the community around me. And I think the less that I pay attention to that sort of thing, I think probably the better. I don't really know a lot about what's going on outside of my little community here in Nashville, over here on the east side of town. And so I try to focus my energy on that. And then, I go out, I play shows, I meet and talk to people, and we have great conversations. And I don't really know beyond that what the movement is or whatever. Because I think that Don and I both, at one point or the other, have gotten kind of categorized in with certain things or certain people or whatever it is. And I think Don would tell you as well that it's not like some intentional. I'm not trying to be part of a movement. I'm on the whole real suspicious of kind of movements. I'm just trying to live my life, and I'm trying to make honest work and work I think is good. And I'm an artist, so it's real expressive kind of work. And but short of that, I don't really have an agenda about the kind of art I'm making. I'm just trying to kind of shoot from the hip, trust my instincts, and but I think it is a struggle. I mean, I actually wrote a song kind of about that on the new record. It's called A New Law, and it's just about it's a sarcastic kind of song. It's tongue in cheek anyway. Just about how most people, that's really all we do want. We want, a new, more specific set of rules or guidance in order to tell us exactly how we're supposed to be living. And that's not really what Christianity offers. It offers life by the Spirit. It offers a variety of things that are permissible but maybe not beneficial for all of us. And that can look really different in different kind of lives of different people. And so it's really hard. But I think that's definitely something we need to resist, is the movement mentality. I mean, we are at very least diverse members of one body. But we are, and every word in that sentence is important. We're diverse, and we're members of one body. And so that said, I'm sure we'll end up talking about a little bit about some social issues tonight, because that's something Don and I have both put some energy into. And I think it's important to say right up front that, good Christian people trying to at least work from a biblical framework of caring for the poor and caring for our neighbors and loving our enemies and all the things Jesus has commanded us to do, we can all reach really different conclusions on how to do that. And that's okay. I mean, I'll go in by the back door, you go in by the front door. God has made us different with reaching different conclusions for a reason. Maybe in the midst of all that, some people will actually get cared for. The evidence of our faith will be, will show in our lives, will show up in our communities. Hopefully that's going to happen. But I think it's important to say right up front that we are diverse members of one body, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with. In fact, we should expect that we're all going to disagree a little bit on how to do things and things like that. So anyway, I think that's kind of my take on it.
Well, let me point over to Don for just a second, because you have opened up a good can of worms there, Derek. Yep. When we talk about the counterculture and we talk about being diverse members of one body, and yet you guys are at the forefront of having something very specific to say to those diverse members of that one body. Where does the concept of leadership come in? And if you're going to be willing to step out and say something that should impact the body, must you not also be willing to take up that mantle of leadership? And does that not also have the inherent risk of becoming a movement, whether you want it to or not, as a result of that?
Well, I mean, my answer to that question is no. I think there are biblical ideas, and then there are cultural ideas from cultures based on the Bible. And I think the idea of if you say something, you're a leader is a cultural idea, not a biblical idea. I mean, there are prophets, there are people who walk in and they say things with their actions by the nature of who they are, and that's it. I really don't believe that I have an agenda for the church. And therefore, I don't think that I would consider myself a leader in the church. And but if people do, that's fine. I don't know if that gives me responsibility or not, except just to say, there's some ideas. I believe the gospel is relational. I believe it can be broken up into systematic theology and explained that way, but I believe it's relational. Now, that's a very controversial message to some people. And so they lump me in as trying to lead the church away from that. But was that really my agenda, or was it just me going, boy, breaking it down that way was not good for my heart, but this really was. And I just made the statement. If the statement, creates a lot of sparks and polarizes people or whatever, then I don't know that that's necessarily, that makes me any kind of a leader. And the other thing is, I don't feel called by God to be that kind of a leader. I feel much more called by God to be about 25% prophet and about 75% writer. Mm-hmm. And I think writer means you show people some beauty, you engage them in a story, you let them know that their life is much bigger and better than they thought it was, and to some degree you help people know that as a human being we really have a lot to identify with each other, and that's kind of it, you know, and I don't see my calling as being too much bigger than that.
Cool. There was a question asked, and one of the questions was, both of you seem to be on the forefront of what is perceived as a new way of thinking in Christian circles. Are you really? Is the themes and the ideas that you're espousing in your music and in your writings really all that new, or are we really just hearing some of the things said in a different way that perhaps haven't been elucidated in the church in a few years?
Let me answer that question. Let me answer that question. This is Don. Let me talk real quick about Derek's work, because I know he's going to want to answer it. But what I hear when I listen to Derek's records is somebody who has, engaged theology on a systematic academic level, and then broken it down to a much more relational idea, which to me makes a lot more sense. And in other words, he's owned it, where it's broken out of the sort of propositions, and it's come to mean something to him. And I think that's one of the reasons I was drawn to his work, in the sense that, there was a while, and Derek can speak to this, where it felt like he was a tortured soul. And then there was a while after that where it felt like he had been set free by grace, And to me, that what that is indicative of is somebody who has engaged the ideas for real. He hasn't just memorized points. He's engaged the relational truth about who God is and what he did. And I think that in itself, taking that step, is different. It's different than what we see in mainstream faith. And so, yeah, I think it is different. But that said, it isn't new. It's in fact ancient. If you look at Scripture, you see the exact same kind of stuff. Guys who engaged systematic theology, then it became real. It became, there's this person, Jesus, and he's actually doing something. Hold on a second. He's dying. This has gotten crazy. This used to be about ideas. And I think so. I don't think it's new. I think it's ancient, but I think it's a return, hopefully, to the truth of what is actually happening in Scripture.
Mm-hmm. Sounds like you're saying first came the law and then came grace.
Yeah, it's true in my life. Even without even not growing up a Jew, growing up a Christian, it was about law for a long time, and then at some point, you have to realize there's a deity involved, and this deity has a will of his own, and he has, as much as we can understand him, he has feelings. If I were to use a metaphor, a human metaphor, he has feelings. He likes and dislikes, and it has to break down to that eventually.
Yeah.
Derek, I want to turn it back in your direction for a second or two.
Yeah, no, I completely. I agree with Don. I've heard Don say some really tremendous things about, and Don, maybe you can give us this quote, but I heard you say a thing just in terms of what some people might call interpreting the Bible for our generation. I heard you say something that I thought was really great about, somebody said that our job is to interpret Bible to a postmodern culture. You can probably take it from here. You probably know the quote I'm talking about.
Yeah, it was a friend of mine had said the challenge of our generation is to translate Scripture to a postmodern culture, and my position was that it already is translated for a postmodern culture. That the actual book itself is much more postmodern than it is modern, in the sense that the challenge then is to stop translating it for this culture that thought everything could be broken down into three ideas,
In a modern text, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, and the way that I think about that, as far as what, Mike, your question was, I can say it like this. In my years in Cademans, especially early on, I did spend a number of years intentionally kind of going back through studying theology, really learning about the character of God, what we can know about the character of God, what He's revealed to us, and studying some of that. I know a lot of people will get to a point in their lives where that becomes really important, and they really begin to engage that. And I think that's a great season for people. And it was a really good. I'm glad that I went through that season and learned in a systematic way something about the character of God. The trouble is that systematic theology is only beneficial to us insofar as God is, in fact, systematic, and He's not. It was J.I. Packer who said that the only truly biblical theology is a theology with loose ends all over the place, with the mystery left intact. And there was something about that I did not understand during my years of study. And even though I was writing songs that were affirming what it was that I was learning, songs like Thankful and songs that, were very theologically kind of founded. But it's interesting that as I looked back, those were my most unloving years towards people. And the Bible would tell us that if we have this great airtight theology and we think we've got it all sorted out, but the evidence of our believing it is not how we live with and love people. If that's not the evidence of it, if it doesn't compel us to love and take care of people, especially people who are difficult to love, the oppressed, the poor in our culture, then Scripture tells us that we're nothing more than a ringing cymbal or a clanging gong. And so it wasn't until just a few years ago that basically old ideas for me, I started to realize the necessary implications of those ideas. And that's what led me to make this newer record. Some people say, well, what happened to your earlier records? They were more theological and about God, and now this new record is about kind of social issues, and there's no gospel on it. What happened to that? I believe that there's a point at which our theology must become ethics, and if it doesn't, then our theology is of no value to us. And that's what the Bible says. If our theology, if it never moves from our heads and our hearts down into our hands and causes us to love and take care of people, if the fruits of the Spirit are never there, if there's never that evidence of what we believe about God played out in the way that we love and take care of people, then it's of no value to us. And so these are the necessary implications of very old ideas for me.